Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné, and here are the top stories from across the continent. The UN is launching an investigation into a massacre in El-Fasher after the Rapid Support Forces seized the Sudanese city last month. The UN Human Rights Chief calls it a shocking atrocity, with reports that hundreds were executed in house-to-house killings. The mystery of a plane in South Africa is making headlines. Intelligence services are investigating who was behind a chartered plane that landed in Johannesburg with more than 150 Palestinians from Gaza who were left stranded on a tarmac for 12 hours. And global commodity prices are heading for their biggest drop in 6 years, just as Guinea's giant iron ore mine launches production at Simandu. So what does it mean for Africa? Our guest from the World Bank will explain. The UN is to investigate into a massacre in the Sudanese city of El-Fasher, captured last month by the Rapid Support Forces. It comes as the UN's Human Rights Chief gives a stunning assessment of the atrocities in which hundreds of people are reporting to have been executed in house-to-house killing. Jenny Shin.
An urgent call by the UN Human Rights Council to probe into atrocities in Sudan. Member states have adopted a fact-finding mission to investigate reported mass killings after the city of El-Fasher fell to paramilitary forces last month.
Much of El-Fasher now is a crime scene. Since it fell into the hands of the Rapid Response Forces, our fact-finding mission has interviewed witnesses and collected evidence of unspeakable atrocities. A comprehensive investigation is required to establish the full picture, but what we already know is devastating.
The mission would seek to document evidence of crimes against humanity, as well as identify the RSF fighters and allies responsible. The fall of El-Fasher to the Rapid Support Forces on October 26th cemented its control of the Darfur region in the more than 2.5-year civil war with the Sudanese army. Reports have emerged of starvation, rape, execution and torture of civilians, and turned El-Fasher University into a killing ground where thousands had been sheltering.
Bloodstains on the ground in El-Fasher have been photographed from space. The stain on the record of the international community is less visible, but no less damaging.
People fleeing the city have described civilians being shot in the streets and attacked in drone strikes.
The roads were terrifying because of the bodies of men, women, and children, along with their clothes, belongings, and documents scattered across the street. It looked like a scene from a horror film.
The road is perilous, with the UN saying information gathered indicates that hundreds of women and girls were raped along escape routes. Close to 100,000 people have fled the city since the takeover, with many remaining unaccounted for.
Now, it's already been called the mystery of the Palestinian plane. South Africa has allowed more than 150 Palestinian passengers coming from Gaza to disembark after they were kept on the plane for almost 12 hours by the country's border police. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said there was an investigation to uncover how the Palestinians came to South Africa via a stopover in Nairobi in Kenya.
Even though they do not have the necessary documents and papers, these are people from a strife-torn, a war-torn country. And out of compassion, out of empathy, we must receive them and be able to deal with the situation that they are facing. And it does seem like they were being, flushed out. We will get the details later, but from a humanitarian point of view, we could not return them from whence they have come.
And let's try to find out more about the story with Eunice Masson. She's joining us live from Cape Town. Eunice, good to have you. What do you have for us?
Good evening, Clarisse. Yes, so all of the passengers, according to the Department of Home Affairs, hold Palestinian passports, which grants them 90-day visa-exempt access to South Africa, which, of course, is subject to security and verification processes. But when they arrived, the people from Palestine, when they arrived at the Johannesburg airport without departure stamps or return tickets or details of accommodation, the Border Management Authority did not allow them to disembark. Now, after the intervention of Home Affairs, even the President and the humanitarian organization Gift of the Givers, the refugees were disembarked, like you've mentioned, only after 12 hours. And they are provided for by the Gift of the Givers at the moment at an undisclosed address in Johannesburg. And according to Home Affairs, none of the refugees at this stage have applied for asylum in the country.
Eunice, a lot of questions remain unanswered, and yet it's not the first plane bringing Palestinian passengers to South Africa, isn't it?
No, it's not. This is the second flight arriving in South Africa carrying Palestinian people. The first flight arrived on the 28th of October, and Gift of the Givers confirmed that that plane carried 176 people. Now, they were all allowed to disembark without any challenges, while they too had no exit stamps or what they call departure stamps from the Israeli government. But the question everyone wants to answer, of course, is who arranges these flights? And the Embassy of the State of Palestine shed some light on why the passengers do not have the correct documents. And according to them, the people were exploited by an unregistered and misleading organization. Now, it's understood that the organization would take money from people who want to leave war-torn Gaza, but then facilitate their transport in an irregular and irresponsible manner. And the people on yesterday's flight did not know they were going to South Africa. They only found that out when they stopped in Kenya. It's still not clear who this organization is. In South Africa, like you've mentioned, President Ramaphosa said that the matter is being evaluated by intelligence agencies and all the relevant government departments.
Eunice Masson, live from Cape Town. Thank you for following that story for us. To Guinea now. On Tuesday, the country officially launched production of the Simandu mining project. It's the largest known reserve of iron ore on the planet. Guinean officials are counting on it to bring in crucial revenues, but China is also banking on the project as Beijing seeks greater control over the market for one of the world's most crucial commodities. Brian Quinn has the details.
In Western Guinea, a lavish ceremony Tuesday. Presidents of Gabon and Rwanda on hand, along with the leader of Guinea's military junta, General Mamadi Doumbouya, as Africa's largest ever mining project officially launched production.
When it comes to iron, there's the world before Simandu and the world after. Since Guinea's entry into the global iron market, you can't talk about iron without talking about us.
Located in the remote mountain forests of southeastern Guinea, Simandu is the world's largest untapped deposit of iron ore. First mapped in the late 1990s by British-Australian mining giant Rio Tinto, its reserves are estimated at more than 3 billion tons. The $23 billion project to extract and transport the raw material for industrial steel includes a 650-kilometer-long railway and a purpose-built port. It's expected to produce 120 million tons per year, making Guinea Africa's second-largest exporter of metals and minerals by value. Guinean officials are expecting the project to bring in much-needed revenue, but it's not the only country counting on Simandu. Despite once nearly owning all the rights to the deposit, Rio Tinto now controls only a quarter. The rest is owned by Chinese firms. China is the world's top buyer of iron ore, importing some $130 billion worth each year, and Beijing is angling for more control over the market for what is the #2 most traded commodity after oil, seeking to reduce its dependence on foreign suppliers and gain leverage to control prices. The project will also contribute to China's dominance in the extraction and refining of African resources.
And to discuss this and more, we have on board John Baffes. He's a senior economist at the World Bank. Welcome, Mr. Baffes. So you've seen our report. Simandu mine has begun its operations. So how significant is this milestone for Guinea and for the global iron ore markets?
Thank you, Teresa, for having me into the program. The Simandu project of iron ore is very important. As was said, it sits on the largest deposit of iron ore in the world. Guinea is a country of 15 million people with per capita income of $1,500 per year. So this is very, very important for the country. However, having said that, the iron ore market is a bit goes through a little of a weakness in terms of prices this year. According to our latest report, we expect prices this year to be about 10% lower compared to last year, and we're also expecting a further weakness next year. This is not surprising because the iron ore market is well supplied at the moment. Brazil and Australia, who happen to be the world's two largest iron ore suppliers, have increased their supplies, and they're expected to increase even more. And China, which, by the way, is the largest consumer of iron ore to supply its steel industry, faces a bit of a weak demand. So large supplies, weak demand have a kind of downward pressure in iron ore prices for this year and perhaps next year.
So, but you talking about iron ore, but the latest World Bank's outlook for commodity markets forces a general decline for commodity prices. So how this decline in prices will affect Africa?
That's right. In the report, we expect the prices of other commodities to decline as well. For example, oil, which is the most important commodity for the world. The expectation now is that this year is going to be about 15% lower than last year, and this weakness is expected to continue less next year. The reason is too much oil in the market, both coming from the United States as well as supplies by OPEC, which reversed the production cuts that they started 3 years ago. So we have too much oil in the market, and the weakness, in fact, extends in other commodities, including grains, which are experiencing an ample supply in that market. So we're experiencing tough, sort of lower prices there as well. However, there are some exceptions in the global market.
Some exception, but also there's this decline in commodity prices could maybe be beneficial for other countries.
That's right. For the producers, of course, low prices is not very good news. But for importers and consumers, low prices are good news. And in fact, a lot of countries in Africa are net food importers. They are energy importers. So that's good news for them, absolutely. And then we have also other commodities, such as gold, for example, the price of which have skyrocketed the past couple of years. There are other commodities, such as coffee, cocoa, where countries such as Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire and other countries in East Africa for coffee, like Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. And for those commodities and countries, this is good news because price of those commodities are expected to increase.
Are we seeing the same trend for cocoa? Because this cocoa, usually prices have been rising, but what about cocoa?
Yes, indeed. We expect the prices of cocoa to keep high, to stay high. And in fact, the two major cocoa producers, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, have experienced supply problems the past 2 to 3 years, I would say. Those are mostly disease and weather related. So we had a decline in supply. It has pushed cocoa prices to record highs, prices that we have never seen before. For example, prices this year are about 200 to 300% higher than what they were 5 years ago. And again, as I said earlier, this is good news for producers of cocoa, especially in Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, which, by the way, account for almost 2/3 of global cocoa supplies.
Great, thank you very much. To make it easy for us to understand this commodities market. And thank you very much, John Baffis, Senior Economist at the World Bank. To conclude our today's edition of Eye on Africa, thank you for joining us. Keep on watching France 24.